sleep, I'm losing sleep. Think I'm going crazy. Someone cross drink. Feel like I'm drowning.
I'm Madison Porter. People know of the Porters. I am 22, just turned 22 in July. I go by they, them pronouns, so I'm not a girl or a boy. Born in Danville. Been here all my life. 22 years of me roaming these streets.
All right, so you mentioned you go by they, them pronouns. Can you explain to people who may not be familiar?
Right. They, them, or non-binary means someone who doesn't feel comfortable with being only a girl or only a boy. It's sort of an in-between or outside of the gender appearance spectrum. Like I classify myself as trans-masculine, meaning that since I was assigned female at birth, I want to have a more masculine appearance than what society, like the box that I was put in at birth. What else am I into? I write poetry. I'm a different sort of wordsmith as you are. I like video games a lot. Okay, superheroes, not to quite a degree, but still like superheroes, art, anything creative pretty much. I'm really, really into. Like, I may have won an award when I was in college for poetry that you can still find somewhere on the internet. Theater, yeah, I do like theater, and I miss being in plays. I didn't think I would ever say that, but I miss being in plays. Okay, well, in the early days, it was like mom and dad. Like I would try out for sports and end up not liking it, and they'd be like, finish out the season or whatever, and move on to something else. Like you made a commitment, so you should stick to that commitment, sure. But since it doesn't fit you and what you want to pursue, that's perfectly fine. Like I was given a choice in whether I wanted to pursue arts or sports or both or whatever. And sports weren't calling my name. Yeah, it was a good support system, and especially like with dad in music and finding solace in music and like using that to help, I guess, fuel the gears in my head about what I want to pursue. Not necessarily music, but helping me connect and making art while listening to music. A few good friends in elementary school. Yeah, mostly one that I kept around and that kept me around. I made sure she wasn't bullied, and she made sure that I wasn't verbally bullied because I was too big. People were just, it was more like we supported each other, and like we would go to each other's birthdays, and we were tight. She was mostly my support system. The teachers really liked me because, I was, a well-behaved student.
So you mentioned being bullied. Did any of that ever come because of the color of your skin?
Not at that time. There was bullying in future that was because of the color of my skin, but it was mostly a weight-based thing. Like I remember jumping rope in the gym class because it was raining outside, and a couple people shouted "earthquake," which was interesting. There was one where it was around when Mean Girls came out, and they made a burn book in 3rd grade, and I was marked as the ugliest person in the grade.
Wow.
Yeah, and me being with the notebooks being as flimsy as they were and me being as strong as I was as a 3rd or 4th grader, I just ripped it in half in front of the people who wrote it and threw it in the trash can. Yeah, they didn't mess with me after that.
That would have sent a message for you.
Oh, yeah. Well, in middle school is when, because I have severe eczema, and middle school was around the time where my eczema got really, really bad. It started to get inflamed. I had to wear these gloves because I would, there would be open parts on my hands, so I couldn't touch things without it stinging. And that really did put a strain on my schooling, and not the relationships with peers, but more like some teachers didn't understand that while technically I could write it hurt a lot to do so. Positives, though, were I got more involved in theater. Miss Marlowe, who I love, was the theater teacher there. Well, yeah. More involved in my writing, started getting more passionate about it, started getting more into visual art as well, which really did help me have something to do to distract myself while also paying attention to class. I'm allergic pretty much to outside, a lot of trees and grasses. I'm even allergic to horses. In the horse capital of the world, I am allergic to horses. We have severe eczema. I've always had eczema, and it got, like I mentioned previously, it got a lot worse in middle school, and like it kind of plateaued in like freshman and sophomore year, and it like spiked for whatever reason in junior year, I think. Like I started to get maroon. I was inflamed, but it wasn't bumps. I was smooth, but I was maroon. I was the color of this chair walking around. And I couldn't put on real shoes or socks. I had on pajamas, and but I still did a play, maroon. I did it, greasy as hell, because I had to carry around Vaseline to feel comfortable, and had to get a note from a dermatologist so I could wear a hat because like my hair was coming out. Like it really changed how I perceived myself, because instead of me relying on looks and stuff, because my eyebrows were gone, I couldn't really make a lot of facial expressions. Instead of relying on looks and how I'm perceived, I relied more on my words and how I acted to really make it known how I felt. Well, Mom told me this later. She had to make sure that I was still breathing because I was in so much pain that like I couldn't toss and turn to sleep. I had to stay still. Vaseline, arms length away, so I could make sure that I wouldn't be stiff. Because if I got stiff and turned my head, like there'd be open cuts. Like my skin became so thin that like I couldn't paint. I had open marks on my hands and feet, and like the creases on my elbows. That's why these stretch marks are so large, is because my skin is still so thin and I scar incredibly easily. But like, yeah, that's probably the darkest part of my life so far. Who knows? That's depressing. Hold on. Wait. And it was 7th grade. I'm not going to mention names, of course. And it was in 7th grade where I got called the N-word in history class. ER and everything.
Wow.
Yeah. And I told the teacher immediately. I was crying, and like he went to the principal. It was an interim thing at the time. Went to her. I was in the office, and more memorable thing of that experience was she gave me a mint to make me feel better for being called a slur.
Did it make you feel better?
No. No,
I didn't think so.
I just
felt like I had to.
Yeah, and at the time they were trying to implement some sort of peer counseling thing.
Yeah. Peer mentors.
Peer mentors and all that stuff. So we had a peer mentor sit with me and the person who called me the N-word in like a small conference room at Bait, and we were asked a lot of questions. I had notes. I was like, why he shouldn't do this, why this shouldn't be allowed, why he should like at least get detention or something, because this is not okay and shouldn't be allowed. And he basically said, I don't know why I did it, and like I'm sorry, but clearly not a sincere apology, just so he couldn't miss a basketball game.
So high school.
Yeah.
Anything else around that same subject area?
Trying to think of phrase. It was more about my sexuality.
Okay.
Honestly, because I feel like I came out as a lesbian freshman year, and that was basically because Danville being more colorized, I guess, it wasn't really like the people who were against things like that weren't very vocal about it, because there'd be a whole bunch of people not coming after them, but definitely not brushing it off. So that was my defining feature that people really pinpointed. Well, it was mostly a vacation where it was a wrestling thing. We were in Florida. I barely remember it, but my family noticed, mostly mom, noticed that I was very quiet the whole time, just like walking around, headphones on, just like glancing at the sky dramatically. Coming out story. Yeah, Florida, and then we got back from vacation. I was still staring off into space a lot, and we were getting ready to go out for my birthday dinner, actually. Or it was a dinner that was around my birthday. I can't really remember which one. Yeah, we were going to O'Charlie's, and I was getting ready, and because my ex might have to apply lotion, so I was like doing the lotion. I just stopped and like stared at my TV, and my mom came in just like, "Are you ready?" And I was still like half dressed, like, no, I'm not. And she was like, "Okay, I've had enough. What's wrong?" And I said, "I like girls." She was like, "Okay, but do you still want to go to O'Charlie's?" I was like, "That's it? That's all I'm getting?" She's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Do you want a hug?" I was like, "Yes, absolutely. I do want a hug, Mary Carol." So I got a hug, I got dressed, I felt immensely better. I was still happy crying. And mom asked, do you want to tell Elliot and dad, or do you want me to? I was like, "Can you do it? Because I don't want to go through this again." Just that, because even though I knew you would be accepting, like all of you, there's still that like unconscious panic that is like ingrained in LGBT folks, because you see so much about the negativity around coming out and being who you are, that like I felt like mentally I was packing my bags just in case, you know. And yeah, she told dad first, and apparently they told me this later, that they high-fived because they said I wouldn't get pregnant. And good for them, man. And then she told you, and you came in my room, fist bumped me and said, "I heard we like the same things."
I believe it was something
To that effect.
Yeah.
Like every now and then I would like stop and like cry like a little bit. And we had the most flamboyant waiter that I've ever had at O'Charlie's. And it was just a great day. A weird day, but a great day. Freshman year of college, I was dressing more how I wanted to. Like, more sweatpants. Yeah, I found out, because I knew that people could be non-binary. Like, I've been on the internet, and the internet's where a lot of LGBT people really get their information, because there's not a lot of LGBT history books in public schools. And a good friend of mine is agender, which is similar to non-binary, but a different label, because some people don't like that label. And I got really close with them and came into my own, and I started dyeing my hair crazy colors. I looked like Sully from Monsters, Inc. for a week, because I had a fro hawk and teal and purple spots. I became vice president of the alliance there, helping the gaybies, as you call it, the gay babies.
How do you decide what's offensive and what's not offensive?
It's more on a person-person basis. I'll use gay terms. Some people use using the F slur to define themselves, and to use like how Black people use the N-word sometimes, just with each other. And some people aren't comfortable with that, and some people are. Like the word queer, it was used as an insult. It was used as a label, and then an insult, and then a label again. And some people, depending on the age group, will or won't take offense to it. It's more of who you're involved with and what you're comfortable with. It's not really like a widespread, this is bad, this is good, use these terms. It's more, this is who you're around, and this is what they are comfortable with. And if someone new you meet is uncomfortable with something you say, change it. One particular instance was, my hair was pink at the time, like a bright cotton candy pink, and we went to a pizza place. We were sitting in this pizza place minding our own business, and the manager, owner, I'm not really sure, the dude who was walking around and asking if you were okay and if your food was all right, he came up and touched my hair. Like, and ruffled my hair. And he was like, huh, isn't that something? And I literally backed up. I scooted back. I was like, what are you doing? He was like, no, I'm just admiring your hair. It's very different. And I was like, okay. Like, not really a compliment, more of saying that your hair is different. He was like, it feels like a cloud. I was like, thank you for that. Yeah, and I was angry. I was so angry. Because I have what I call wet anger, which means if I get angry, I start crying. Hands were clenched, and I was like, take me home. And I got took back to the dorm, didn't even go grocery shopping. I was so mad. I remember the minute I heard that the president was getting elected, I crawled under my dorm bed and cried my eyes out. And my friend group, which is all LGBT people, at dinner, we just sat in silence. Because it was like a mourning process and fast forward. Because we heard what he was saying and what he was doing and what he's done in the past. And we knew that the progress that has been made in the past few years is just gonna either try to be demolished and hurt us emotionally or actually be demolished and kill us eventually. It made apparent that people who are racist and homophobic, they felt like they were allowed to now. And the backlash from that really hurt me. It really, really tore me up. Like, because I knew we would be fighting. Black people, LGBT people, everyone will be fighting for their right to survive, not even to live and be alive, because surviving and being alive are two very different things. And man, I'm just getting sad.
What is that like, being an individual in both of those minority groups today in 2020?
Let me tell you, I did a presentation on this in college. Because, let me start with the LGBTQ. There's a lot of racism in the LGBT community, even though it was pioneered by Black and brown LGBT people. Marsha P. Johnson, like all of these people. Like, look up the Stonewall riots if you haven't. The Stonewall Museum is an excellent place. They have a wonderful archive. Yeah, like people, like LGBT people think mostly, of course, white LGBT people think that because they're of one oppressed group, that gives them an oppression card. And they're able to do it to do and say whatever they want when it comes to another minority group. And that's just not correct. Like, a lot of white gay men tend to use AAVE. Like, child, girl, yes, queen. Mm-hmm. Like, that is from Black women of all sexualities. And then gay men use it, and then straight people use it, and they say it's a gay thing, and it's a gay thing is cool when it's really a Black thing. And it's just a whole line of cultures that are intermingled, but people don't realize it because it's a trend. Black history and LGBT history are inherently interconnected. Mm-hmm. They're woven together because of, the amount of Black and brown LGBT people and how they pioneer things. And like a lot of the organizations, like the reason why L is in front of G is because the first gay organization was a lesbian organization. And a lesbian organization pioneered by Black women. Like, it's important to show that because the history is so interconnected that you shouldn't be homophobic or racist in your own community. Like, you are excluding a huge part of the community by doing that. That's why there's newer Black and brown stripes to the pride flag, because it needs to show, like, these are your roots. Even though your skin color is different, these are your roots, and you should know where you come from. GSA meetings, I would mostly answer questions to the best of my ability, since I am, I try to educate myself on the daily. There's still stuff I don't know, and experiences that I haven't had. Like, a few of the students were like, what do you do when you don't have accepting parents? And I was like, make sure you're safe, first and foremost. Because while it may hurt to hide that part of yourself. You need someplace to live and to survive until you're able to find a steady place. And it was interesting seeing the future generations, almost like people who could eventually, and already do, some like teach others new things that they could learn about themselves, or show them all these kinds of people in a safe and reliable way.
I was always told that you were left in the oven a little bit longer, so
Yeah.
your skin is a little bit darker than mine.
Correct.
Did that play into your racial identity at all?
Yes, it did. Because there's the whole light skin versus dark skin thing, which, by people of color can be seen as a joke, but when it's taken to more serious measures, it's called colorism, which is the preference for someone who is of color, but on the lighter spectrum of color. And it's seen in media, like Beyonce is perceived as light skinned, even though she is darker skinned, because the Photoshop and everything lightens her up and gives her blonde hair and things like that. Lighter skin is seen as more appealing, even though it has the Afrocentric features, like the big lips and the nose and the ears and the eyes.
Dr. Mollis, I've met her.
Yeah.
I've taken classes with her, and it seemed like every time we had a conversation about school, she was brought up. So can you kind of talk about why she sticks out to you?
Well, she is, she's a woman, and being a women's studies professor, so she's able to pull on personal experiences to help explain. And in social justice issues, that is very important. Social justice is very personal because it deals with who you are to your core. And that helped me learn better, to hear stories and along with the statistics and general knowledge for that. She was very passionate about what she does and who she is, and making sure that people respected her. It was made sure that she was known as Dr. Mollis because she earned that doctorate, and that power was amazing. That was so appealing to me. She knew that she earned the right to be here, and that was beautiful. I gave her an art piece that I made of the intersectional feminist symbol and everything. She was like, wow. She loved it. It was amazing.
So we talked about educators in college. Were there any in elementary, middle, high school that you saw as having a large impact on not only your academic success, but kind of who you are as a person?
Yeah. The art teacher at high school, especially. I loved her. I took art every single year. I was in AP art, if that makes sense. Yeah, we were buds. That was Shelly. Even when I was in class, that was Shelly. She would let me pick out music, and it was a good place for me to be myself and creative, without limitations, except don't do anything dangerous, which I wouldn't have anyway. But helped me really figure out what I would want to do visually, because I still do visual art to a degree. But it was really a community in that art room. When we weren't allowed to make a GSA, it would offend some people, and so I made an art club, which was pretty much same thing except with more paintbrushes. And she was ready. She was the sponsor. She was like, let's go, let's watch movies.
What advice would you give to your younger self as far as relationships?
You are going to find somebody else, because my thinking back then was I'm in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky. Who is going to love this gay brown person? Gay, overweight. Weight is a whole different concept that I could get into. Well, a lot of because there's still relationship structure, and a lot of people will see it as very heteronormative, meaning one is a man and one is a woman, and people ask which one's the man, which one's the woman. And so I'm trying to blur the line between that, because neither of us are men. And I'm not a woman. And it, like, being more masculine does put like a perception of me in relationships as like a baseline, but in the interpersonal conversation, that can be blurred. Like, be as open as you can. Like, vulnerability is hard, definitely, but being vulnerable, there is power in being vulnerable. Like, seeing yourself with someone, and like, trust is very important. And so, like I came out to my girlfriend at the time. She was the only one I came out to, and as non-binary, and that trust really did help to a degree. And it was very important to me. Like, being open and honest is one of the hardest and most beneficial things that you can do in a relationship.
Mental health issues in the Black community and the LGBT community. So can you kind of just give a general overview on your thoughts of that, and then we'll narrow the questions as we go?
Well, like, race and mental illness is honestly an interesting topic, because mental illness, like, mostly in media, it's perceived as a white people thing. Like, you rarely, like, if you think of a asylum in a movie, have you seen people of color in it?
Not that I can think of, now that you...
Yeah. And even though, like, if they're in an asylum acting crazy, it's still technically mental illness representation. And however negative mental illness representation. And mostly since mental illness is seen as a white people thing, there's a lot of repression in the Black community when it comes to emotions. Like, you have to be strong, you have to be powerful, you have to stand up for what you believe in, which, yes, stand up for what you believe in, but also you don't have to be strong 24/7. And like, that strong machismo rationale really, like, messes with somebody. Having to be strong, like, makes you feel like in your head that you can only be weak when you're by yourself, even though you would need support. And weakness is, vulnerability is perceived as a weakness, even though it is a strength. Like, nothing is necessarily a weakness if you can turn it into a strength.
Would you feel comfortable sharing your religious beliefs?
Yeah. Okay. Well, definition of it, because I'm spiritual, not necessarily religious.
Okay.
Because I wouldn't call myself Wiccan. I'm technically an eclectic kitchen witch.
Okay. Can you kind of explain?
Eclectic meaning weird. I gather what feels comfortable and close to my heart spiritually. Kitchen meaning I use the herbs and spices that are above the stove to make myself feel better. Yeah, like, I try to meditate and connect that way instead of organized religion. Like, I don't go against organized religion. You know, people can do what they want as long as it doesn't hurt people. But that's not necessarily what I fit into. Like, I have an altar and crystals. I look crazy, gathering rainwater and, like, going outside under the full moon. But it's what works for me. I think part of my spirituality is the unknown. You know, like, I don't know if there's an afterlife. I've never been there. But there is sort of like an in-between sort of situation. Like, people, because I do believe in ghosts and things like that, and spirits. And, like, spiritual guides, especially people who have stayed on this plane of existence to help refer people to either to the afterlife or some sort of peace within themselves. Because, like, I honestly, like, the afterlife isn't necessarily important to me. Like, if my existence goes on or does not once I pass, it's fine. Let me do a hosier, let me soak into the moss, you know? But, or donate my body to science, that'd be cool. But, like, just being at peace and taking in the moment now and coming to terms with who you are and your impact on your personal world is, like, and thinking of the now is more important to me than the afterlife.
What are some of your happiest memories and kind of why?
Of course, one's with Eli, because like the more recent ones
Mm-hmm.
really stick out to me. Like whenever he's outside with the water,
Mm-hmm.
amazing. Him just going off the handle in that big yard.
Him and the sticks.
Him and his sticks and rocks that he's gotten better at not putting them in his mouth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thankfully.
Yeah, he has.
Wait. Hi. Hi, baby. Excuse me.
Hi.
He's confused.
Aren't we all? Yeah, bath time because he likes to splash. He loves the water. I'll sing along and like I'll dance whenever he splashes, and that's amazing. Even though he tries to like, he likes to stick it because we have a bowl of bath toys. He will fill it with water and then stick his face in it, and then get scared because he sticks his face in it. And like the best thing I think, because he climbs out of the bath himself pretty much now. He holds onto my shoulder and climbs. And I'll have the towel right here. He'll hug me. He'll hug me so tight after a bath. And we'll just sit there for a little bit because it's hard to get up. But we'll just sit there and like music will be playing and I'll sway and he'll point to stuff in the room and I'll tell him what they are. It's just a good moment. Most proud of. Probably my published poems, honestly. Like, even though that was years ago, it's still very important to me. And I'm like, those are, like, personally, those are one of the best poems, a couple of the best poems I've written. Because they're very personal. And, like, at the time, there was a lot happening emotionally. Whether it was, like, the change of going to college or just the political environment or, like, friendships passing. Those poems were very important to me. So putting that out there and that being out there for other people to secondhand experience it is very important. And I hold that near and dear to my heart.
Is there anywhere your poems can be found?
The Lindsay Wilson website is where you can see my most popular poems. I do have, I can do my poetry Tumblr if we want. Insecure narcissist poet, greatest hope. Like, not to be hashtag depressed, but like it's a hard time to hope right now. And like me, like I'm sure a lot of other people are going gay by day. Yes, day by day, and making sure that they're not overwhelmed by the environment outside. And I just hope that we get through it because we are all being traumatized simultaneously. Like being desensitized to what's happening on the outside, like hearing another person dying and feeling almost indifferent is a trauma response. And we're all just trying to go day by day. Like I hope that we make it through this and become a better unified people eventually. But like it's hard to look in the future when the present is so bleak right now. Like there are happy moments in the darkness and we have to focus on those to help better our present day. Because otherwise we don't want to drown in all of this sadness and the fear that is really around day-to-day life right now. Being black and gay and trans and alive is the greatest act of rebellion I will ever do. What have you done lately?
Anxiety makes my heart and my chest pound violently. No longer can I sit by silently. I can feel every one of you eyeing me. Low key, feel like everybody lying to me. My head filled with noise while I'm trying to sleep.